Hello, we're going to be talking about loading filament and unloading it into the TAS5 Lulzbot. First of all, we want to make sure we have our filament, and say if our end was not even, we'd want to make sure we have a pair of clippers, and we just go ahead and clip that to make sure it's nice and even. And actually do it again. One more time. There we go. Nice even tip versus what we might get out of the machine itself. All right. Next step. The filament goes on the edge of the machine. Which way it goes, it's kind of up to the user. I often like to put it on so that it's coming up and over this way. We're going to turn on the machine. And then we have a few more things we need to do. As it boots up, I'm going to record over here so y'all can see what's going on. All right, so I'm going to go ahead, use the clicker wheel here. I'm going to turn it up to the temperature of the filament that I'm using, in the nozzle in particular. The bed is less important for this selection. So typically I'm heating it up to at least 205 for PLA. Let's do 215. And this is, so if we go back to centigrade, we're going back to our screen. You'll see a lot of focus here, but you can see it's going up to 215. I'm going to clear out the bottom there of any old filament, and hopefully you'll be able to see this as we go. So right now it's warming up to about 215 degrees Celsius. And then, let me just show you. So as we get closer, the next thing I'm going to do is again take the screen here. I'm going to go to movement. I'm going to go to move axis, and as you can see there's an extruder movement. I typically like to move at 1 millimeter at a time. 10 is kind of too much. 0.1 is not as fast. So once we hit that button, you'll see our wheel is moving there. And we want to go in the positive direction from there to there. From the loading filament. Once it gets about heated up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the filament in there, and then slowly but surely, I'm going to put this camera down, and I'm going to start loading my filament with that guy winding. I can sort of give it a start, and then put it in here. It should grab. You'll see those gears move out of the way a little bit, and then sort of at this point, I'm able to move it up, the filament is loading up. It's important to note that when you are loading filament, you are not right up on that build plate, because the filament's not going to be able to come out. You're not going to be able to clear out the nozzle when you are too far away. So I'm going to go ahead and put this guy over here so we can kind of see what I'm doing while I do it. Make sure we're as in focus as we can be. And then I'm going to go ahead, continue to load our filament. We should be about heated at this point to that 215 degrees Celsius. Okay, so we're going to keep going with the filaments. Usually you have to get up to, it's somewhere in the 70 to 80 range that the filament tends to start coming through if you're starting at 0 on the extruder. And the important thing to note at this point is that you really want the old filament to be cleared out of the nozzle. What do I mean by that? You've probably seen it with the other printer tutorials at this point, but what I'm gonna want to do is to make sure we're getting that old color out, because we don't want any overlap with our printing, particularly if we're starting to print without a raft or skirt or any sort of support, so that your print is the true color you want it to be. In this case, I loaded green because it's pretty bright. Easy to tell that that filament coloration change is happening. And again, if you're using different kinds of filament on this machine, you want to make sure that you are loading at the proper temperature for that filament. So you can see it, maybe I'll see now, we're getting some black filament coming out. And now we're at about 99 movements. I think this, I'm moving at 1 millimeter at a time, so it's 99 millimeters. And now I have the green filament there that's coming out, so we're in a good place. At that, I would click, let's see, show you here. Get out of my menu. So I've loaded, I can go back to the main menu. And at this point, I could start printing my my print on my SD card. Whoop. Not doing well getting to my SD card. There we go. So I could start printing at this point. Now, just like that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the print. If you're unloading, it's pretty much the same exact process. So, going to movement, move axis, extruder, we want to make sure it's heated up. Of course, at this point we know it's heated up. So when we're unloading, we want to go in a negative direction. So our numbers are going down, and our filament is coming out of the printer. And just like it took a while to load, it's going to take a while to unload. It's really important to do this before and at the end of your print. The filament can, especially with PLA, it can absorb moisture over time, so it's really good to get it out of this printer and to store it. That's pretty much it for loading and unloading filament in the TADS Lulzbot. And if you have any questions, let us know.